Welcome to Conquer a Parenting Podcast with Americ McCullough. Americ is a mother of three and occupational therapist. My name is Scott Grierson. I am a elementary educator and father of one. On today's show, we are going to be discussing what's wrong with timeouts with Dr. Laura Markham. So, Americ, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great today. I think you had a challenge that you did. Can you tell our listeners about it, Scott?
Yes, it was my turn for the do-it-yourself parenting challenge this week. Let me just say that I annoyed everyone around me with our challenge this week, so it was super fun. My challenge this week was to try to implement please and thank you with my daughter, who doesn't have a lot of words. Again, she is going to be 2 in April. So before I said anything, I said please, and then after I said thank you. It annoyed my wife to no end because Emma, will you please do this? Oh, thank you. Emma, please. Thank you. Every single time for every single thing for an entire week. It drove everybody nuts. Um,
Well, how did it go though? Is she starting to say it?
so thank you, not so much. She does not say the thank you. She will say please every once in a while. If she wants something bad enough and I'm not giving it to her, she will say something like peas. It sounds like peas,
Right, right.
she doesn't have the L sound, but she gives me a peas and then she will point at what she wants. So I don't think she knows she's being polite. I'm not sure this is actually has any substance at all, but she will say peas and point to a sucker that her grandma left that she really wants that I won't give to her. Um, so it's really just another way of her like trying to get what she wants at this point, but at least she's being a little bit more polite about it now.
Right, right. I think that's great. And you know what? The other thing you can do, because one of my kids has dyslexia and he didn't talk till he was 4. And
Okay.
I taught him the sign language for thank you. So it's like this. It's just like that. You bring your palm up and then, palm down from your
Okay,
chin to,
that's thank
and
you or
that's
please.
thank you. That's thank you.
Okay, so she might be
I
able to
forget
learn that.
please. Yeah, she'll totally be able to learn that. And then, it's just something that she'll eventually say it and then
Right.
she won't use it anymore. But maybe if she's having not that she's having trouble, but like you said, she's only 2. So
Well,
words
I
might
like
not
that, and I
be.
won't annoy everyone around me by constantly saying thank you for every little thing. Yes, Emma, thank you for walking over here. Yes, thank you for finishing your milk. Thank you for
I
this.
love it. I love it.
I don't know if our listeners have picked up on this or not, but I can be a little bit compulsive. And when I really get into something, I do it over and over and over again. So this was kind of up my alley, but not up everybody's alleys that were around me this week. So,
I
you know,
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that eventually she'll get it, and she understands it already. It's just she's just maybe not saying it yet. So
well, it's certainly possible. But anyway, let's get back on track this week. We were talking about timeouts. What's wrong with timeouts? Do you have any initial thoughts on the topic of timeouts? I think it's a controversial one this week.
yeah, it is a little controversial, and I definitely have given my children timeouts. So I'm interested in hearing, what's wrong with them, with Dr. Laura Markham. So I'm excited about our podcast this week.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll get with that interview in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Amric here. Has your child been recently diagnosed with special needs? Are you hearing words like autism, Down syndrome, ADHD, developmental disability, or dyslexia? If so, I bet you're feeling guilt, self judgment, lack of self confidence, or relationship struggles. Things that work for other parents just don't seem to work for you, and you're feeling overwhelmed. All of this is much easier and more efficient if you have the right support, coach, and mentor on your side who understands what you're going through and knows how to help you, your child, and your family thrive. I specialize in coaching parents of special needs children on how to parent and think differently, which creates lifelong solutions for their entire family. If you're ready to gain self confidence, lose the guilt, and take control back of your life, check out my website, conquersmp.com, and sign up for a free breakthrough session today. I look forward to hearing from you. Again, my website is conquersmp.com.
Emric, are you ready to talk to our special guest today about timeouts?
I am ready.
Excellent. Well, today's amazing guest is Dr. Laura Markham. She trained as a clinical psychologist at Columbia University. Dr. Markham is a best selling author and founding editor of AHA Parenting. She uses a style called peaceful parenting, which has helped thousands of families across the United States and Canada find compassionate, common sense solutions. Dr. Markham, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Excellent.
Dr. Markham, thanks for joining us. Before we start talking about timeouts, can you just tell us a little bit about AHA parenting?
Okay. Aha parenting is named for those aha moments, like, aha, oh my goodness, I never looked at it that way before. Because most of us come to parenting without really having thought about what kind of parenting works best to raise a great kid.
Mm-hmm.
We sort of do what we automatically did. But when you look at the research on what actually works for kids, it's a big aha moment because, in fact, some of the things we take for granted are actually fake news. They're misconceptions. They're not.
Right, right.
In fact,
They're
they're
thoughts, right. They're thoughts that we've always had, that we've learned from our parents and just handed down generational. And yeah, I
yeah,
agree. I agree. So
right.
that's a great segue into what we're talking about today. um, we're going to talk about timeouts. So we can all totally relate to timeouts. And I've given my kids timeouts. I have three kids. They're older, but I have given them timeouts. So what's the good? What's the bad? What do you think about timeouts?
Okay. Well, there is one thing. Actually, there are two things I would say about timeouts that are good. I know anyone who has ever heard me speak before will be very surprised to hear me say that, but there are two things that are good about timeouts.
Okay.
One, they're better than spanking.
Yes, I would say that.
And
Yes.
so pediatricians who didn't know what to do about spanking and saw spanking as a big problem because spanking leads to getting out of control and really hurting a child. I mean, it's a very
Right.
common thing, and we know it has pretty bad effects on children's mental health as well.
Hmm.
They get older. So pediatricians got together, I don't know, 30 years ago, 40 years ago even, and said, okay, let's do something different for parents. Let's urge them to not spank their kids. Let's urge them to do a temporary love withdrawal. It was a
Right.
withdrawal technique, which just means you remove the child from your attention. You don't give them any. It's called timeout from positive reinforcement. So that's what they decided to do, is to recommend to parents that they have a timeout. So you'll notice this wasn't because this was better psychologically, although it is better than spanking. It wasn't because
Right.
it was
Right.
psychologically. It was because parents needed something to do. And at that point, we didn't really have good enough
Right.
answers. Most
Right.
parents knew what to do. So that's the one good thing, is that it is better than spanking. The other
Okay.
thing about timeouts is that it does, if a big if here, if you can get your child to go relatively easy to timeout and you can use the time to calm yourself down, then it's the timeout for the parent is actually great because the parent gets to settle down and realize, oh my goodness, I flew off the handle, and start to get recentered so they can deal more reasonably, confidently, compassionately with the situation with their child. But here's the
Right.
thing, your child should not have to go to timeout in order to do that. So, right? Because you
Right.
can have a parenting break anytime without sending your child to timeout. And we haven't talked about what's wrong with it, but once we do, you'll realize, oh, I guess needing a break doesn't justify the timeout.
Okay. Okay. So I have 3 points here. It seems like timeouts make kids see themselves as bad people.
Mhm.
Can we talk a little bit about that first?
Yes. So what is a timeout? A timeout, the way we give it to a child is we say, you misbehaved, you broke the family rule, you know better, go sit on the naughty step. So I don't know
Right.
about you, but when I was a child, I had to stand in the corner.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I did. I had my kids stand in the corner. Oh, my poor children.
Yeah,
They're all healthy, they're all fine, but
I came out okay too, but not because I stood in the corner. Actually, thank goodness, I did a lot of work on myself, and so the fact that I had to stand in the corner didn't get my way because I did some work on it. But let me say, I remember standing in the corner. Guess
Mhm.
what I thought about while I was in the corner? Did I think, oh, I'd like to be a better child. I would like to not misbehave in the future. In fact, I'm going to redouble my effort.
Right.
Do you think
I'm going to be a superstar child right now.
I thought I hate her? I mean, I'm thinking of my stepmom at this point because I remember the specific incident. Um,
Okay.
I hate her. She never listens to me. She never understands. She,
Aw.
Right, right. And I mean, I think you just have to know that any child who's standing in the corner or sitting on the naughty step, their mind is churning with something that defends them, and it's rage at the person who put them there.
Right,
Oh,
right. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So over time, one of the things, this isn't actually what you asked about, we'll come back to that in a sec, but one of the things that happens over time is you erode your relationship with your child. Do you think that after that incident, I was more willing to behave for my stepmother? No.
Right.
In fact,
No.
less willing to behave. I was enraged at her. I thought she was a hypocrite because she came and hugged me afterwards. Now, did you learn your lesson? What did you learn? Now, let me give you a hug. She had read. You're supposed to show children love after you discipline them. And I was just like, don't you touch me. Inside, I couldn't say it or I'd been back in the corner. But can you imagine your child, you're saying to them, what did you learn? Okay, now let me give you a hug. And what's going on in the child? It's
Right. It's a complete mix emotion and messages.
you're
Yeah.
eroding the relationship with the child. And that matters for two reasons. One, your child's only reason to cooperate with you is the relationship. The only influence you have on your child is that relationship. So over time, the research shows kids behave worse when they are given timeouts. The research is clear on that. Kids who are given timeouts behave worse than kids who are not given timeouts because we assume one of the reasons is that the relationship is worsened. Another reason it's not so good for your relationship to be worsened because it makes parenting harder. I mean, not just
Right, right. The struggle's real.
yes, they don't cooperate as much, but also even something more amorphous, which is when we feel connected to our child, all the sacrifice is worth it. But when we're having a hard time with a child, when the relationship is not as deep, not as sweet, not as strong, what ends up happening is that we resent all of that hard work, which is an enormous amount of sacrifice, right? And all the sweetness goes out of parenting. And so when parents say, how can I put the joy back in parenting? Well, one way is to deepen and sweeten your relationship with your child. And one way to do that is to stop doing timeouts and find ways to help your child follow your guidance, to guide your child without punishing them with a timeout, which erodes the relationship. There are ways to discipline children, quote unquote, to guide children that actually strengthen your relationship, but timeout is not one of them. And then you also asked about something else, which you said the child feels like a bad person. Well, if a child is being sent to timeout, they know they're a bad person or they wouldn't have been sent there, right?
Right, right.
They feel like, wow, I couldn't even control myself enough not to hit my sister. I couldn't even, control myself enough to do, or, once again, I'm the problem child in the family. I'm the one who has to go to timeout. So they begin to feel bad about themselves. And, it's hard to do good when you feel bad.
Right. Yeah, you get into a pattern of behavior. Yeah. What about another point you have is timeouts don't help kids learn emotional regulation. I love this one because I'm an OT, so I'm totally like, oh yes, this is so true. So true.
Yes. Well, learning emotional regulation is one of the major tasks of childhood. And
Hmm.
we know that many people are not successful at it because look at how many adults are unable to regulate themselves, right?
Absolutely.
We know that the relationships between husbands and wives that are better are the ones where they can self regulate as they talk about a difference of opinion or, needs. And
Right.
we know that the marriages that end in divorce often it's because someone was not able to regulate when they talked about difficult subjects, right? So these are skills that you need in every relationship. You need them in the workplace or you get fired. You need them
Right.
with
Yep.
a soccer team or you get thrown out of the game, right? So these skills, these self-regulation skills are just they're one of the most important things our children need to do. And parents give so much attention to, oh, my child has to do well in school, which is great, wonderful,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're missing something super important, which is that even more important to your child's eventual success in life than how they do in school is probably how they regulate their emotions, how emotionally intelligent they are. And so, what does it take to regulate emotions? Well, children learn when they get dysregulated, they learn how to regulate from a calm adult and they need to be with that calm adult. And in fact, it's not just that they learn by watching us. Their limbic system, their emotional system, their neurology is born unfinished. because
Right.
humans are very adaptable, right? Because we're born unfinished, so we can adapt to any situation. But what that means is that their limbic system takes shape in response to the environment. And the most important thing in their environment for many years is their parent. So when tempers flare, when things get difficult and the child gets dysregulated, how will the child re regulate? By having a calm parent who says to them, I'm right here. You're safe. We're going to solve this.
Right. Yeah.
If the
Ma-
child's too upset, you can say nothing because that will set them off until they're at the point in the tantrum where they're sobbing and they've gone from anger into sadness. But they need to know you're available because they can't make that transition to sadness until they're safe.
okay. Great point. So, and the third point I have is timeouts work through fear as a symbolic abandonment. Can you just review that one? That was a mouthful for me.
It is enough. Children um, children know intuitively when they're tiny, when they're 2 and 3 and 4 years old, that they need their parents in order to survive, right? If we suddenly stopped taking care of them, they would literally die. And they're terrified of losing us more than they are of just about anything. And so many parents have experienced a child who's having a full blown meltdown in the supermarket, and the parent says, okay, that's it. I'm leaving. You can stay here if you want, and the parent begins to walk away. And the child sits up, stops crying, and starts to run after the parent, screaming, stop, stop, right? So,
Yeah.
what happened in that instance? Well, what happened is that the child was overwhelmed with their upset, their need for the cookie because they're hungry or whatever. They were,
Right. Whatever the situation is.
they're overwhelmed. But something happened that's even bigger than that. The even bigger thing is their parent started to leave them. And all of a sudden, survival was in question, right? And we all know, you can get annoyed at your child for being rude to you, but if you're crossing the street when this happens and all of a sudden a car is speeding towards you, you will do anything to get
Right.
out of the path of the car, right? All of a sudden your priorities have shifted. Well, the child, when survival is at stake, because mom and dad are threatening to leave them, separate from them, that's a pretty big deal for children. So you might say to me, yes, but the naughty step, it's just right there around the corner. She knows I'm in the house. But for young children, what you're really doing is symbolically saying, hey, I can put you on the naughty step. I'm the one in control here. And not only that, not only are you out of my sight, which is the way you're supposed to be in a timeout, out of sight, because it's timeout from positive reinforcement.
Right. From anyone. Right.
Yeah. So not only can I put you out of my sight, but you only exist in my presence through my good graces. And you know what? I only like you when you're self-regulated, when you're behaving, when you have big feelings going on that you can't control. I don't like you anymore. I'm going to stop loving you. I'm going to put you around the corner where my love does not extend. So you're giving your
Oh,
out of
right. Okay.
right. It's not only that you're abandoning them physically, that you're basically saying, look, I could abandon you anytime I want physically. You're also saying, I will not be there for you when you most need me, when your emotions are out of control and you don't know how to self-regulate.
Right. Yeah, and that's such a good point because little kids have no idea how to self-regulate. I mean, they don't. I mean, they're so heightened. They're like constantly like fight or flight, because everything is just they have very low tolerance for any, if a toy breaks, it's the end of the world. If they're hungry, it's the end of the world. Like it's either all or nothing.
Yes.
And so they have to learn that from parents, but you're right. If you do go in the timeout, I can see why they would think that because it's an all or nothing thought process that they have.
Yes.
uh so what should we do? Let's get to the nitty gritty. What should we do instead of timeouts?
Okay. So, first of all, we're mostly talking about young children because you can't make a child go to timeout by the time they're, 8, right?
Right, yeah, that's all over.
I think like by 5 or 6, you're dragging them because they're not going to do it, right? So,
Right.
we're really talking about young children who, as you've just said, can't self regulate. They don't have much prefrontal cortex yet.
Right.
And that's what allows them, even though they have big emotions going on, that neural wiring is what allows them to say, okay, I, I can calm down here, right? But they're not there
Right.
yet. So
Right.
they need us there. So when your child, so we have a few different situations where parents commonly use a timeout. One of those situations is when the child is in a full blown tantrum, right? And the parent's like,
Right.
not allowed to do that. Go over here. And, sometimes they put them into a different room and shut the door, like their bedroom. That's a very common thing, right?
Right. Right.
So at that point, when the child is very upset, I recommend a time in.
Okay. Oh.
Now, you're with the child. You're doing
Okay.
the time in with the child. You're being the adult, safe adult who restores safety to the situation. And you don't say much because children can't reason when they're swept with big emotions.
Right. Right.
But what you say is, I'm right here. You're safe. And if the child is enraged, what you really want is for the child to feel safe enough to go under the rage to the feelings underneath it. Because under rage, always we find fear, we find grief, we find powerlessness, which is an awful feeling, which is another kind of fear, right? I'm powerless. I can't protect myself. I'll never
Right.
get my needs met, right? So really, these more vulnerable emotions like terror, fear, um, unprotectedness, just grief. You've had the baby on your lap all day and I'm only 3 and frankly,
Right.
can't handle this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when a child is swept with those big emotions, often they start with rage. No, I won't. I want that, or whatever, right? And so
Right.
we may have to hold the limit that we just said. No, you can't have a cookie. Yes, it is time for bed, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that in an empathic way. We can say, this isn't what you wanted. I see that's not what you wanted, sweetheart. And sometimes just acknowledging what they wanted is enough to head off the tantrum or the meltdown at the pass. But sometimes that's not enough because they're also tired or hungry or just they've had it. And this is nature's way of helping them handle that overstimulation, neurologically speaking. And
Mm-hmm.
so they just do lose it. And at that point, if the child is losing it, our job is to stay with them and to say, you're safe. I'm right here. If they won't let you touch them, that's okay. That's fine. You can simply say, I'm right here with a hug when you're ready. And by the time they get to the stage of the tantrum, sort of toward the end of the tantrum, where they are ready for that hug, they're in sadness. They often climb into your lap at that point and just sob their hearts out. And
Right.
then that means you've gotten under the rage. You've gotten to the tears and fears. And so
Right.
our job at that point is not to shut down those tears, not to distract them. Many parents think, oh, I should distract them. Actually, better to let them feel the tears and fears because they've been carrying them around.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Feel them. And the research again shows that when we distract the child, they get the message that their feelings aren't okay. When we instead say, oh, I know that was so hard. Yes, you really wanted to go to the park, but it's raining or whatever.
Right. Right.
Yes, that's right. That's what I
So
want.
terrible.
They,
Right.
they will cry more when you acknowledge the feelings because that's how we all feel when someone who cares about us acknowledges our big feelings. We are like, yes, that's right. And we're more in touch with them for that moment. And we feel them more acutely and we express them. And guess what happens next? The magic thing about emotions is they're a message. Once we get the message, they begin to dissipate.
Right.
Child, once you've been the compassionate witness, your child lets go of those feelings. And then either what I have found after they sob their heart out, either they fall asleep, not uncommon, and that was part of the reason for the meltdown to begin with, or they are so happy. They're not wound up happy. They're more like
They're
really
like elated. They're like, yes, you got me.
love,
I got through it. We got through it together.
yeah.
It's
My
yeah.
loves me. My dad takes
Right.
care of me. He always understands, right? They feel so safe and understood. It's like a very basic need has been
Yeah.
met. And, then they're little angels for the rest of the evening. And I've had parents who begin to allow tears tell me, yeah, we used to have 5 timeouts a day because every time he come out of timeout, he would act out again and have to go back in. But now we've started doing this and he cries like that. he's great for the rest of the day. It's almost like a new kid.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think I've kind of had that happen with my kids. Early on I realized like one of my kids didn't talk till he was 4. So I had to do a lot of like, so you're feeling upset right now, and then he would just shake his head or no, or you know what I mean, like I had to use a lot of watching his body language. But
Mhm.
I was his voice, and even his siblings were his voice too. So I learned that early on, but it was challenging in the beginning because I didn't understand. I was going around to speech therapists and, everybody. I'm like, what's going on? But it's so true. Once they get that acceptance, they really do let it go. And kids are so forgiving. They're so forgiving. I mean, you could have screamed at them and you allow that emotion to go through, and then they're like, "You're my best friend. I love you." It's so cool. That is one thing that I notice about all kinds of kids. They really do let go, pretty freely.
Yes, yes, it's a wonderful quality. The thing is that as they gain more prefrontal cortex, they let go less.
Yeah, I
They
know.
right? I'm serious. Sort of like the dog. You've had the dog, you forgot to let them in. They're out of
Right,
the storm. Finally, you let them in, and you know what the dog does? They lick you. They're so great.
right. They're like, thank you.
The prefrontal cortex would go, "Why did you leave me out in the rain?" Right? And
Yep.
that is the thing with kids. As they gain more prefrontal cortex, they they don't forgive as easily. But I think it's really important for parents to remember that whatever they do is going to affect their child. The child will feel it even if the child is so able to compartmentalize, right? They will. So it's not like what we do yelling at them has no effect. Yes, it's okay to yell at your kids. It will not, you know,
Right, right. It's not the end of the world,
not, and
right.
and especially, you talked about a child who didn't speak till he was 4. If you have a special needs child, you have to be a superhero to parent them.
Yeah, you
Right?
do.
Yeah, you do. And so you're not going to be perfect. You're not. So I
Right.
think the thing to remember is repair. Children are affected, but when you said they forgive us, they do forgive us. And so it's our job to model repair, to go to them and say, that was really hard, wasn't it? I, you were so upset and then mommy yelled at you, right? And then you cried and
More,
broke.
right. More upset. Oh, yeah.
And I am really sorry. You don't deserve to get yelled at no matter what. And we're going to figure this out because I see that once again, you didn't want to get in the bathtub and it's really bothering you to take baths. And I was just so frustrated, but we're going to figure this out or whatever it is.
Right, right. Insert problem. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just think it's so important that it's fine to make mistakes, but it's just so important that we learn to repair and that we model repair for our children. And then they learn that from us.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of times I've apologized to my kids, like I'm stressed out. It doesn't, but it's not their fault. And I'll go back and I'll say, you know what? I was a volcano just now. I'm really sorry. I got control. Let's talk. And every time at my kids they're like, okay, mom, that's awesome. So it really is important to go back and repair. I love that. That's a great thing to do
And
and teach them.
and you're talking about timeouts, that's not something they learn from timeouts because usually when
Right.
they come out of a timeout, they are maybe parroting what you want them to parrot, so what you want them to say so they don't have to go back into timeout.
Right.
Oh, and they're angry. They're not, they have a chip on their shoulder. They do not feel good inside when they come out of the timeout. They're not ready to make a repair, right? So
Right.
yeah. Another
Dr. Markham, before we let you go today, we're running out of time here. I did want to give you the chance to talk a little bit about your book series, Peaceful Parents,
Yeah.
to our audience, and kind of what's the idea behind that.
Okay. So peaceful parenting doesn't mean you're like a Zen master all the time. No, nobody is. No parent is. Right? I say, nobody can be peaceful 24/7 except maybe Mother Teresa, and she wasn't a mother.
That's true.
So peaceful parenting means 3 things. Most important, we self-regulate. We have to regulate our own emotions so that we can show up as the parents we want to be with our children. And when we do get dysregulated and yell at them, as we were just discussing, then it's our job to make a repair with them, right? But basically, the idea is that we work on our own issues and we don't take them out on our kids. The second thing about peaceful parenting is the reason children cooperate, the reason they behave is because of their connection with us. It's because they love us and they want to please us and they value our relationship more than anything. So that we have to have the same orientation. We have to value that relationship. And really, whenever something goes wrong with your child, your first thing is to stop and self-regulate, take a breath. Your second thing is to reconnect with your child. Like ask yourself, well, what does my child need right now in this moment? And that brings us to the third part of peaceful parenting, because the third thing is to coach your child, to
Right.
set the conditions so they can thrive. So you're not trying to control your child. You may be trying to control the environment. No, we don't use screens on weekdays, or no, we're not going to have dessert first. But you are coaching your child. You're emotion coaching them so they can better handle their emotions, right? Your emotion coaching could be that you're empathizing with them even as you set a limit. I know it's so hard to clean up your toys and start getting ready for bed, so you're empathizing, but you still set the limit, but you're empathizing. Or you're helping them when they get dysregulated. Again, that's emotion coaching. So instead of resorting to punishment or even bribes to force your child to do what you want, you're instead coaching them to be their best self by helping them with their emotions and by noticing what's making them dysregulated or making them misbehave and helping them so they can meet your expectations.
Yeah, those are awesome. I love all three of those. And that really encompasses everything.
Yes,
It's the problem, it's you have to get yourself straight. You got to figure out what's going on with your kid, and then you got to coach your kid. I mean, and that's the key to really figuring out this thing called life, and trying to figure out our kids and helping them the best way we know. So those are great points. Love them. Love
And if
them.
our audience wants to find out more, where would they go?
okay. I have 3 books. It's the Peaceful Parenting series. So Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids, How to Stop Yelling and Start Connecting, Peaceful Parent, Happy Siblings, and the Peaceful Parent Workbook, which takes the work a step deeper on yourself and on how to set limits with your child and connect. And also, you can find me online, parenting.com.
Great.
Excellent. And the books are available on Amazon.
Absolutely. Anywhere books are sold.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Markham, for being on the show today. Americ, any last words?
No, I think that was great. Thank you so much for coming on our show. We really appreciate it, and I look forward to looking over your website. It's very thorough, and you have a million solutions there. So it's such a great website.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you both.
Oh, thank you.
This segment of the show is brought to us by mathradio.com. Mathradio.com offers educational math courses for students between the ages of 7 and 17. So if your child is in the 3rd grade, 7th grade, or even high school, they have courses for you. Sign up today at mathradio.com for any math course for only $9.99. Help your kids do better in class, get better grades, score higher on exams, and even get into college. Act now and get your courses at mathradio.com for as little as $9.99. Again, that is www.mathradio.com. Americ and I would like to say thank you one more time to Dr. Laura Markham for being on the show. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Next week, we have another fantastic guest, Joanne Crone. She's here to talk to us about the questions we should be asking our kids after school. Joanne is the founder of NoGuiltMom.com, a mother of 2 and a teacher with a master's degree in education. Can't wait to have her on the show next week. If you do have any questions for us, you can reach us at conquerpodcast@gmail.com if you want to send us an email. Otherwise, you can reach us over on Instagram. It is Conquer a Parenting Podcast over on Instagram. You can also check out our YouTube channel if you would rather watch the podcast. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye for now.